Especially these days with the kind of gruesome murders that we are having. Every day, up to this morning, we had a situation where a woman was tied. She had her two back hands tied behind her back and all of that, and her house was set on fire. You know, when she had to break down the house and go, she was there. She couldn't get out, even if they killed her before, they tried to kill her before, and she had some way of escape. She couldn't do it. And for us, the press, who actually is government is here now, to come and say to the society of Trinidad and Tobago, the death penalty is abolished. Trinidad and Tobago will not carry on the death penalty anymore. The crime for murder, there is going to be life imprisonment. That will not, I can tell you, at a time like this, it's not going to go down well in our society. In fact, our society right now is hurting off of crime, and I know the society would like to see that the death penalty resume, and it resumes swiftly.
But
not with all these delays. I can tell you that.
I'll tell you something, George. I remember we had a case in Barbados where a double murder was committed, and the chap escaped the conviction for murder charge, and I think I don't remember what it was called, but I know he was not condemned to die. A double murder, you know, and it was that, he didn't go there to kill. But it was not a powder puff that he had in his pocket. But he didn't go to kill. He still lives. Incarcerated, yes, but he still lives. 2 people dead. You got the point? And like you said, some gruesome murders you hear about. And the officers do their best trying to solve. But the officers can only do their best. And a point at which it goes where the officers, well, beyond here is out of bounds for me. And people live. Human rights. I wonder if that isn't human wrongs.
You see, now Amnesty International slogan, abolish the death penalty, is a better word without it. You know, abolish the death penalty. Abolishing the death penalty will not stop murders, just like we have carried out the death penalty. I know it will not stop murders. And how come the world could be a better place without it? When others is not going to abolish the death penalty, it's a better world without it. How come? I mean, how could it be?
Well, okay, if the death penalty is not a deterrent, and I mean, we know it is not meant to be. It is a penalty, but if it is not a deterrent, what do you have to put in its place? What would be a deterrent?
And that's critical. And they think that they are calling for lifetime in prison. And
it is not a deterrent, so it don't make sense carrying on with it. Because people are still killing. Now, if that is not a deterrent, what is?
The thing about it, John, even if you commuted the sentence to life imprisonment is not going to be a deterrent for murder.
Of course not.
As a matter of fact, people still go to jail. People go to jail every single day. You can go to the court and hear somebody get a 2 and 3 year sentence for robbery, for theft, and so on. Does that stop people from committing robberies?
No, because those things are not deterrent. Those things are penalties. That's what you pay for what you've done.
And I am saying, so why don't we apply the same logic to theft, people who break open to people's houses? Why we could say putting them in jail does not stop them from doing it?
But you still put them?
Well, we still put them. Snatching somebody's bracelet off their hand. We shouldn't put them in jail for that, because you know what? That is not going to stop someone from snatching somebody's gold chain or snatching somebody's handbag. So this guy who do it, he was in downtown snatching people and picking people's pocket. Don't put him in jail because that is not going to stop him. The same logic should apply for other crimes. Why you want to apply one logic for those people who commit murder?
George,
and you don't want to apply this and you don't want to apply the same logic for other forms of crime.
Yeah, because George, there is a school of thought which says, what if in the margin of error you were wrong? You see, they'll put that. I mean, and you must respect that. What if you were wrong in your judgment? You cannot bring him back. And you live with that for the rest of your life. But I am saying that we don't have a number of little children around the corner saying, man, I think he's guilty. I think he's guilty. You've got people who are matured, people who know what they're doing. You've got a you've got a professional on the bench who directs the jury, and there's enough there to be certain. And if you're not certain, then, because I am not saying that capital punishment means, we've got a man, let us kill him. No. My argument is it should not be abolished. Keep it there because there is a use for it.
It is.
Do not abolish it. When you abolish it, you're saying, okay. Because the way people are in the day of today, it is, I've made it, man. If you are acquitted, I've made it. There is no remorse. As a matter of fact, you're looking forward to see if you're going to make it. I have known of people who were condemned and then something happened and they were reprieved and whatnot. And I have heard their relatives come out there rejoicing and saying, I know, I prayed and the Lord, oh Lord, have mercy. The Lord don't sleep. He know that this fella was innocent. And I pray and I know the Lord, they can't let him think. I hear anyhow. I have witnessed that,
and this is a statement from Amnesty International they said significant progress has been made over the past 10 years to end the death penalty, right? Now this is something that they abolished, and then they went on to give some figures, like they said, as I said, global momentum continue to build for the abolition of the death penalty. They're talking about that. But if you look at in fact, there are countries now in the Caribbean where you will not have here a murder for the year, and such as St. Lucia, Bermuda, all of that. You hear 2 and 3 murders. In fact, St. Lucia had a few murders just last month there. And I don't think abolishing the death penalty is going to help.
Not help?
And they say, no, it will not help, because they say, Amnesty International has taken upon their own to fight a very aggressive campaign to end the death penalty. And they want to get as much citizens as involved around the world for this campaign, right? But they often, the solutions that they are offering for the abolition of the death penalty is not one that I will go for. They will call for they call it for the abolition of the death penalty, and they turn around now and call for talk about humane and unjust and cruel punishment in prison. That you still have to respect individuals' right, even though they're in prison, and all of that. And so therefore we have to, like I made this point before, right? Don't execute them, put them in prison. But you know what? Make sure they are well taken care of. Now they wouldn't say this, they wouldn't use that word well taken care of. But when you talk about humane and cruel treatment, the rights to this and the rights to that and the rights to the other. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? How that could be? How on earth that could be an appropriate punishment to the death penalty? How on earth could that be a just punishment for a man who rapes a little 5-year-old child and then murdered her. Just this morning, I want to tell you, on the news where a 31-year-old father beat the daylight off of a 2-year-old child because she didn't want to eat a sandwich. All her face was swelled up, eyes were bloody. He beat the daylight out of a 2-year-old child.
Well, I would think in a case like that, though, George, that this person is ill. I am not the sort who would call for the pound of flesh for that. Like, for instance, wait a minute, George, only recently here in Barbados, we had a case where a 34-year-old male raped an 80-year-old female who was so ill that she was incontinent and was walking with what you call a stroller. And he raped her. An 80-year-old woman who was incapacitated. And his endearing words to her while he raped her was, "I love you." Now that man is ill.
Yeah, well, it's quite possible he could be ill, but I want to tell you this. If you examine men who do these things, they want to see you in agony. They want to see you in pain. They enjoy that. There are men who enjoy seeing and raping a little child.
But that's pedophilia. That's pedophilia. That's an
and they enjoy seeing this child under pressure who should bawl and beg and scream. That turn them on. What is this?
That is illness, George. A person who does that is ill. And that person needs to be treated. What they need is therapy, not penalty.
You know,
I am not one of those austere people, okay. You know. I can really give the right hand where it needs to be, but I can also give the left hook where it should be. You see, that is a power struggle within the person. Something is wrong with that person. That person doesn't need penalty. That person needs therapy. A 2-year-old child, I mean, and you sexually abuse a 2-year-old child or beat a 2-year-old child because it wouldn't eat a sandwich. Something is wrong there.
I always think it's wrong with that individual.
That person needs to be treated.
Treated in what way?
Oh no, you got psychotherapy, a whole lot of things you can do with that person. I don't mean fill them up with medication.
John, let me tell you something. There are some people who just don't have a conscience. They just don't give a damn about
something is wrong with that. Something that God, you know.
Once they satisfy themselves, they want things their way, and they have to get it their way. And they want...
That's an illness. That is a disorder. That is a disorder. And if you trace their childhood, you may have really find the reason why.
You know, well...
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because you see, these things happen. I know we have an experiment there, and these things happen. I see sometimes again, all these kinds of reasons come up. And I know many occasions where these kinds of reasons get people off. And people know because the system will look at this. They will look at the childhood. They will look at the way they grow up. And they know because of that, the system will get them off. And they know they prompt on this, they live on this. They carry this burden on their back, they carry this monkey on their back into society, they let it go. And you had a hard life. And the way your parents treat you. So therefore, because of this, there are some individuals who use situations like this to do what they want and believe that society owes them something and society should treat them and understand them because of what they went through in their past. And I can tell you there are so much individuals who have went through situations like this and they turned their lives around. It didn't hold them and haunt them for the rest of their life. And I have a serious issues when things like this come and say that he was ill. And because his parents abuse him and all that, and he comes an abuser. You know, I have a serious issue with some of these things. You're not responsible for your own life.
All right.
You are not responsible.
Clyde, you want to come in on anything here? So I got a last email to be read, and then we can probably do a wrapping up after that. But you want to come in on anything, Clyde?
Really?
I don't. We lost.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Let's do the email. And thank you very much, Monkey Apple. Nice having you with us. Monkey Apple is saying that the death penalty is better than living in jail. Jail takes away one's freedom. It is better to die a free man with pride rather than to live as a slave in jail. George, you want to comment on that?
I just wish we had. You know what? I'm going to use my closing remarks to respond to that Monkey Apple email. I will really zero in on it in that way because I don't agree with Monkey Apple. You know, talking about a free man. The minute you've been arrested, you're not the minute you've been arrested, you are not a free man. And if you were executed, you didn't die any free man because you didn't have the choice to walk out of prison. You didn't have the right to say, I want to go downtown and come back. You didn't die no free man if they execute you.
No,
okay?
not are you a slave in jail. You are not a slave.
You are not a slave in jail.
You enjoy a lot of privileges in jail.
And you under orders, you under a system where you now have to take orders and obey. You're not in jail. So in the army, when you're in the army, you have to also take orders and you have to know about those things. So you're in prison, you're in a boot camp, it's the same thing. So talk about dying, you die a free man. No, sir. You ain't dying a free man if you were executed.
Do we have Clyde? Clyde, are you with us?
No, Clyde's left us.
Richard is with us, or he's not with us either? Well,
Richard's left us.
Oh, the thing. Well, let me see. I suppose I could do a wrap up now and say, well, I would want to say that I certainly enjoyed the session tonight. And George, you know that there is something that is rather strange for tonight. For those who listen to us all the time, this is one night that we rode the same canoe. We were on the same boat tonight. So, you know, there's a familiar saying, what hasn't met you hasn't passed you. And here we are tonight in unison. All right, for my parting shot, we look tonight at the program, the question, should capital punishment be upheld or abolished? We regard the Bible as God's word. We do. And the Bible supports capital punishment. I will say that. Yes, it is true that we have had some interjections that everybody don't go with the Bible. But this side of the world, we use the Bible. Then there are other religions that use other books. But if we go by the Bible, then I see justification in capital punishment. Punishment should be commensurate with the crime. For that reason, when someone deliberately plans to kill another one and succeeds in doing so, I think justice is done if that person forfeits their life. The offender in capital crime is treated fairly and justly with the utmost dignity. So it is not a matter of taking advantage of anyone. and we've gone through the things that happened, they are considered innocent and must be proven by the prosecution to be guilty. If that fails, that person runs free whether they were guilty or not. So the burden of proof is not with them. These are dignified characteristics that you throw on these people. So it is not barbaric and you are taking advantage of anyone. They get all the rights necessary. Capital punishment is not a violation of God's revenge, but rather a means of honoring his order to execute it, and the dignity that is due to the vanquished, the person who is left in bereavement. One must remember that they are part of the equation, and we need to do something for them as well. And the execution brings justification to the sorrow that they have been inflicted with. Where capital punishment is concerned, if we fail to carry it out, are we not in violation of God's will when we fail to implement it, thus depriving the bereaved of God's justice? Think about that. And now, brothers and sisters, this is John Kelman in Barbados with a reminder that everybody has to be somebody to somebody, to be anybody at all. Love your neighbor as yourself. Until next time, bye for now.
Well, thank you, John. And I want to say that it's not that we don't agree. I think the difference here tonight, we agree on the main issue. You see, most of the time when we discuss, the main issue is where we had the disagreement, but we do have agreements in the topics that we discussed before. But when it comes to the main issue of the self, we always had a difference of opinion. But tonight, though we also had disagreements tonight, but when it comes to the main issue as the abolishment of capital punishment, we both agreed on that and some of these issues. So it seems a little out of the ordinary that you and I would have been on the same wavelength tonight. But I must say I've learned a lot from you, and I always enjoyed talking to you and all of that. But I want to look at the last email that we get that comes in, and that email would have suggested that it is really an honor to go to the gallows if you would have, rather than stay in prison for the rest of your life. Well, you don't have a choice. You didn't go there willingly. In most cases, you wouldn't go there willingly. And you don't have a choice. So, it's not a free man you would have died. And I will tell you this. That email, you wouldn't find, if you was to take that email and do a survey in prisons around the world, I want to tell you that you wouldn't find most prisoners who is on death row today will tell you they would rather spend their life in jail than to be executed. They will not see it the way you see it, unless for some religious fanatic who would have believed he had done justice and God would have been pleased of his action for blowing up a few buildings and killing very innocent people. He would have felt that because of some religious misguidance, he would have done something just and good and God would have been pleased, and he would have asked for the death penalty. And because he believed that would have been honor for him to get a death penalty. When you remember, there was some bombing in, I think it was Dubai or a place near Australia there, when they hold up some extreme religious fanatics. And they went to court very proud. And they were actually asking for the death penalty to be imposed on them, because they feel they would have done, God would have been pleased of their action. And in that case, yes, you would have been right. If you belong to some religions who would have had you misguided and blinded by their doctrine in that way, but I think in our society in which we live, I am sure 99% or even higher, 99.9% of every prisoner will tell you, I would rather spend my life in prison than to be executed. Because your family still have a chance to see you, come and talk with you, and the fact that you is alive. Now, the death penalty. Should we abolish the death penalty age in the Caribbean? I don't think so. However, I believe with the work of Amnesty International and the aggressive campaign that they are now on, we definitely has to take a second look of it. We can't ignore this. We can't ignore it. England, the Privy Council, which is the final court of appeal, has to sometimes sit on matters regarding the death penalty, when they themselves don't carry out the death penalty. They abolish the death penalty, but they still make decisions for us who have the death penalty on our statute books. They still make decisions for us as whether we can execute somebody or not, carry out the death penalty or not, when they themselves don't carry it out. That is one for Caribbean governments to look at. And certainly the Caribbean Court of Appeal should come in and take its rightful place here. I would love to see the day when all the Caribbean governments get together and say the Caribbean Court of Appeal is the final court of appeal and not the stroke of a pen of someone in England. That will be my greatest wish. I would like to come through. And so we would not depend on anyone in the Privy Council to set legal standards for us. We should be setting our own. And that include the death penalty. I don't think it should be abolished. It still remains the appropriate crime for murder today, and putting someone in prison for the rest of their life just will not cut it. It will not be an appropriate crime for murder, because you still have a chance to. In fact, there is people who is in prison today and still carry out crimes from in prison. They carry out the gangs, they charge up the gangs, they have cell phones and all this sort of thing in prison. And I think certainly the faster we start back to introduce capital punishment, I think you'll have a society that feels a lot more safe and will be pleased with that decision. And I hope, and I surely hope that the Caribbean governments, or particularly we here in Trinidad and Tobago, don't take the decision to abolish the death penalty. I want to thank you very much for listening. And this is Tell It Like It Is. And for September 17, 2012, we look forward to joining you next Monday, September 24th, for another very interesting program. So wherever you are this time, good morning, good night, good evening. We wish you all the best until we meet you again next week, Monday, the 24th of September. My name is Dean George, and this is Tell It Like It Is for tonight, and just wishing you all the best. Thank you.